The old man didn't resist when the cartel thugs dragged him into the back of a black SUV. His wrinkled hands, weathered by time and experience, rested calmly on his lap, and his steel-gray eyes remained expressionless. He knew fear when he saw it, and the men who took him, despite their bravado, reeked of it. They had no idea who they had just abducted. David Calloway had lived a quiet life in Mexico for the past 10 years. After retiring from the U.S. Special Forces, where he had spent decades as an elite interrogator, he wanted nothing more than to fish by the coast and drink his morning coffee in peace. But fate had a cruel sense of humor. The men who grabbed him thought they were taking a helpless old man, just another easy target for ransom. By the time they realized their mistake, it would be far too late. The SUV bounced along a dirt road before pulling up to a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of town. Inside, flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows across rusted steel beams. The cartel boss, a thick-set man named Miguel El Toro Vasquez, stood with arms crossed, eyeing David like a predator sizing up prey. "You know why you're here, viejo?" Miguel sneered, leaning forward. David tilted his head, feigning confusion. "A misunderstanding, I'm sure. You see, I don't have much money. I'm just an old man." The cartel members laughed, but Miguel's eyes narrowed. "Your grandson owes me money. He ran off. You pay or you suffer. Simple." David sighed, shaking his head. "Young people these days? So reckless." Miguel slammed a knife into the wooden table. "You think this is a joke? We know you were military. Your son bragged about you, said you were some kind of specialist." David nodded. "Special Forces Interrogator. I spent years extracting information from men far more dangerous than you." The laughter in the room died. The air shifted. Miguel forced a smirk, but his fingers twitched. "You expect me to be scared of an old man?" David's smile was slow, calculated. "Not yet." Hours passed, and the cartel members grew impatient. David had been bound to a chair, but he sat there, calm, barely blinking, while the gangsters fidgeted. They had tried intimidation, threats, even minor cuts to his arms, but he never flinched. Instead, he watched them, studying them. Then he spoke. "You, the one with the tattoo of a serpent on his neck. Your hands shake when you hold a knife. You've never killed before, have you?" The young gangster stiffened. His comrades chuckled, but unease crept into their expressions. "And you," David turned to another. "Your accent. You're not from here. You're from the coast, where your mother still lives. You send her money, don't you? If something happened to you, she'd have no one." The man stepped back as if burned. Miguel slammed his fist on the table. "Enough!" David met his eyes. "You're the weakest one here. You act tough, but you don't trust your own men. You fear betrayal because you've done the same to others. You sleep with a gun under your pillow, don't you? Afraid they'll slit your throat in the night?" Miguel's face paled. David leaned forward, his voice a whisper. "They will, and they should." The silence was deafening. The cartel members shifted, glancing at each other. Doubt seeped in. David had planted the seed. When the first shot rang out, David didn't flinch. A coup was brewing. Tensions boiled over. Miguel had lost control, and his men turned on him. The power struggle was brief, bloody, and decisive. By the time the dust settled, Miguel lay on the ground, a bullet between his eyes. David, still bound to the chair, smirked. "Now that we've handled that, untie me." The remaining men hesitated, then obeyed. One of them, the young one with the serpent tattoo, asked, "What now?" David stood, rubbing his wrists. "You let me go, and in return, I forget your faces." They didn't argue. As he walked out of the warehouse, free and unharmed, David let out a breath. He had won without lifting a single finger. Experience, patience, and psychology had done the work for him. He climbed into an abandoned truck and drove toward the sunrise. he had a coffee waiting for him at home.